Hello. Our next presentation is a case study on the village of Glen Ellyn downtown redevelopment. Here to present today is Bob Minnix, an engineer for the village, and Carol Jokas, project manager for our JN group. Our first presenter will be Bob.
Thanks, Zach. On behalf of the village of Glen Ellyn, and especially our engineering team, I welcome this opportunity to talk about our current and upcoming efforts to rehabilitate and improve our central business district. Like every community, Glen Ellyn takes tremendous pride in its downtown, literally the core component of the village. The present and future vitality of the CBD has consistently been a priority of all the boards I've been associated with during my tenure with the village. The most common descriptor I hear about our downtown area is quaint. And if you look up that word, synonyms include picturesque, charming, and appealing. Yes, I believe it is all of those things with a distinct character and tradition, and the desire to maintain this New England small town ambiance is an ever-present driving force. Other synonyms you'll find, though, are old-fashioned and antiquated, less flattering perhaps, and words you necessarily do not want associated with your downtown infrastructure, but no less apropos as well. There is an ongoing initiative to preserve the essence of our community brand while incorporating appropriate trends, technology, and enhancements. To this end, our central business district has been the focus of many studies and planning projects in the past 10 years, including a downtown strategic plan, downtown streetscape plan, various parking and traffic studies, signage and wayfinding plan, an alternative railroad crossing study, and the Metro train station design and Phase 1 engineering project. There is continuing development interest in downtown Glen Ellyn with some major projects proposed. So there's been no lack of attention to the CBD by the citizen and business communities, and with the recent board approval of a new revenue source, coupled with the previous establishment of a TIF district in the CBD, funding is now in place to move ahead with projects. The last major makeover of the downtown area occurred in the mid-1980s with comprehensive projects to install curbs and sidewalks, street lights, trees and sidewalk grates, some street furniture and accessories, and resurfaced roadways. Underground work at that time included significant drainage improvements and new water mains to replace or augment existing facilities. Over the years, parking lots have been both reconstructed and rehabilitated. In 1998, all the central business district roadways were resurfaced, a project that was immediately preceded by various sanitary sewer spot repairs and limited sanitary sewer main replacements. Undergrounding of utility wires has taken place in portions of the downtown area. In addition, sidewalk and tree maintenance are routinely performed on an annual basis. So what is our current infrastructure condition? For surface elements, the roadways, sidewalks, and trees are looking a bit tired and exhibiting growing deficiencies. Underground? Well, things work reasonably well for the most part, but there's never been a thorough and comprehensive inventory and examination of our existing systems. We have 100-year-old water mains on Main Street and nearly 100-year-old sanitary sewers. What is the state of the underground infrastructure overall, particularly underneath the railroad tracks? We have II issues. Are there any or many clear water connections in the CBD? Why are there 3 or 4 parallel storm sewers in some corridors? These are some of the many questions that we would like answered. So as we embark on this major rehabilitation effort in the CBD, we want it to look good, function well, provide opportunities for greater and varied public and business use, and deliver reliable and improved water and sewer system performance. Our first step was to obtain that comprehensive assessment of our CBD underground facilities. The village retained the RGN group in 2017 to perform a central business district underground utility study, and here to describe that work is Carol Jokas.
Thank you, Bob. So as Bob mentioned, you know, we're looking at the central business district for Glen Ellyn. It's kind of the heart of the village. that this is a very high-profile area. There's a lot of traffic. You have to be concerned about parking. Congestion can be an issue both above and below ground. You have to be concerned about keeping businesses on board with what you're doing. And then, of course, there's the ever-present Union Pacific Railroad that cuts right through the heart of the central business district. So for our underground investigations, we evaluated the public sector, private sector elements, including we did some additional hydraulic modeling for the village, and worked with the village to improve the GIS, their asset inventory of what is there in the central business district. The investigations, many of them, are pretty standard. We smoke tested the sanitary sewers about 8,800 feet in the CBD. Performed inspections of all structures, sanitary and storm, manholes, catch basins, inlets, vaults, everything in the CBD. And as you might imagine, the more you investigate in an older area of town, the more you find out that your GIS is a little bit lacking. So we had a lot of map updates as we go through this entire process. When you do smoke testing in an area and you find storm sewer, sanitary sewer potential cross connections, what we do is dive water flooding. We did 3 dive setups within the village to try and pinpoint where those cross connections were occurring. All of the sanitary sewer and the storm sewer in the CBD was televised. That was done by Michaels. And all of the laterals in the village were televised, sanitary laterals and storm laterals. And the televising encompassed all of the pipes, even everything connecting catch basins and inlets and all of those little short pipes in the storm system. Again, a recurring theme. The more you investigate, the more changes to your GIS that you're going to find. New structures, structures that don't exist, different connections, different directions. A lot of work was done to update the GIS for the village. The water mains in the central business district were assessed. Selected ones were assessed by Ecologics using acoustic testing. That's of the ductile iron and cast iron mains. About 8,000 linear feet were tested. Note that not all of that was in the CBD. Some of that testing was done in an area outside of the CBD, but a total of 8,000 feet were tested. And, as Bob mentioned, it's important to know that all the connections to your sanitary and storm sewers are legal, are in good shape. So, and you want to know that all the connections into those systems are proper. So building inspections were performed, and these are mostly commercial buildings, many of them quite large. And these are very involved inspections. About 127 addresses were inspected in the CBD. Flow metering was performed, and as you can see, the CBD is identified by that yellow outline. Most of the flow is coming from outside of the CBD. It's kind of a pass-through area. It comes in from the northwest and south and then exits out the east. 7 flow meters were installed for a 90-day metering period. And the sanitary sewer model that RJN has developed for Glen Ellyn, that model is a village-wide model. but the Central Business District area was updated and enhanced. Some additional survey grade locates were performed within the CBD, and that survey grade locate was done on the sanitary manholes, but also we picked up many storm manholes for enhancement of the GIS. So the findings, after all of this investigation, the sanitary mains generally were in pretty good shape. Structurally, there were not very many issues. You know, you can see there's one, it's got some fractures starting, some offset joints, it's like a grease issue, but generally the sanitary sewers looked in reasonable shape. However, there are,
incident description.
oh shoot, sorry, I'm gonna turn the volume
Incident
off.
code.
Here we go, sorry about that. What we find in many communities, once you start actually looking at the laterals, is that the laterals are not in very good shape, and there are many lateral connections that go up 15, 20, 30 more feet that are then abandoned. You know, here we have a contractor's cap special. This is an abandoned lateral. And, you know, this is the kind of thing that you don't want to see. In the storm sewer, the structural condition was not as good. We found many more structural issues. You can see the hinge fractures there on the right. Many more structural issues on the storm side. That picture on the top left was or is a box storm sewer that runs under the UP Railroad, and you can see that one large block is actually a piece of the ceiling that has fallen in. That's an area that will require some further work as the village goes to improve their underground infrastructure. One of the other things that you find, or that we typically find in storm sewers, is that they are fairly dirty. This video is actually showing debris from Glen Ellyn. This is one of these recycling jet vac trucks. That's why it looks so dry. But basically, many tons, about 72 tons of debris were extracted from about 1,800 feet of storm sewer. We also identified many crossbores. You can see those two pictures on the outside. Those are actually laterals going through the storm sewer. This one on the bottom is a sanitary sewer that goes through a storm sewer. And then Bob mentioned this earlier, but on Pennsylvania, there is a location where there are 4 parallel storm sewers in the street, which is something that will be looked at as we go forward with this process. Connections in the storm mains is another sort of recurring issue. Generally, contractors just kind of bash a hole in the side of the storm sewer and shove a pipe in. And yes, you're not really worried about I&I, but this can, of course, lead to some structural issues down the road. Building inspections, as I mentioned, most of the buildings that were inspected being downtown, churches, commercial buildings, a few residences, but mostly large buildings. This sketch that you see, this church has 7 sump pumps in it. These are quite involved inspections. And what we found was that there was a little bit higher rate of illegal connection in the Central Business District than what we typically find. Typically, we see about 6 or 7% of illegally connected sump pumps. but we found it was a little more than 10% in the central business district.
In 36.4. PVC.
Okay, sorry, I'm going to shut this down again too. Tidewater flooding, which I talked about, where we're looking for connections between sanitary and storm sewers. So this is a video showing the tidewater flooding in of one of those connections. And we look up the lateral, and this is, again, frequently what you see is the flow, the lateral crosses the storm sewer leaks, and the flow is coming right in the lateral. So then if we look at where that is, so that X shows that's where the lateral came in, that's where the flow was entering the sanitary sewer, and the lateral heads to the south. And because we did televising, we can see where all the laterals are, and that's the lateral we're interested in. So because we've televised all the laterals, we can also see what's up that lateral. And yes, you can see that this is actually an abandoned lateral. It's plugged, and it's pretty clear that the flow is most likely coming in at this joint, this large separation that shows up here. The water main assessment that was done by Ecologics provided the village with some inputs on the condition of their water mains, basically rating them as good, moderate, poor. And on the cast iron mains, Ecologics can provide an estimated remaining life. They cannot do that for ductile, but they can do that for cast iron. And primarily based on that Ecologics study, plus other internal knowledge that the village had regarding main breaks and age of water main, the recommended rehabilitation is shown on the map there. The sanitary model that we did, I said that was all updated and recalibrated to the new flow meter data that we had, and incorporated all the new structural findings from the CBD study. The first thing you look at is the sustainable peaking factor. That's how much headroom do you have in the sewer when you have dry weather flow. And you can see, since this is an older system, you'd want to have more than your normal sort of 3 to 4 peaking factor that you might put into a new sanitary sewer. You probably want to have at least a factor of 10 peaking factor in an older system like this. So you can see that there are some potential areas of concern down here along Crescent in the red and the gold. One of the other things that we'll look at is level of protection against surcharging and overflows. And again, some areas where surcharging and overflows could potentially be an issue based on what the model is saying. We also look at level of protection against potential basement backups in the area. And again, there are some potential areas of concern for over a 6-month or a 1-year storm in the central business district. And then you get looking at the 5-year storm, looking at places where the flow is going to exceed capacity of the existing system. So there's a few items that we have left to complete. For any of you who have done building inspections in the past, you know how difficult it is to get those last few buildings to get inside of them. And we still have a few buildings that we need to inspect. There are a few straggler storm lateral TV inspections that need to be performed, and then dye confirmation of connectivity, both for building inspection and of some of those lateral connections that just to confirm where each building discharges into the sewer. So the recommendations provided to the village include sanitary and storm rehabilitation and replacement of both mains and structures, lateral rehabilitation or replacement for both sanitary and storm. Again, this is one of the RJN's, like, the things that we sort of harp on is sealing those abandoned sanitary laterals, rehabilitating select water mains and water connections, removing illegal private connections, and then some of these further things that need some additional evaluation are those evaluation of the storm sewer needs on Pennsylvania, where all those parallel storm sewers are, evaluating some of the sanitary sewer options on a street called Glenwood, which has some sanitary issues, and then that box sewer under the UPRR, evaluating what the options for rehabilitation are there. So at this point, we're looking, intersection by intersection, block by block. This just kind of gives you an idea of how complicated some of these intersections are in the Central Business District. This is showing just water, sewer, and storm. It does not show gas or electric or any of those other utilities that we all know are there. So there's a lot going on underground. I'm going to pass it back to Bob, and he's going to finish us up.
Thanks, Carol. So going forward, as the underground study was nearing completion, village engineering staff prepared a request for proposal for detailed design of CBD streetscape and utility improvements. The utility component is based on the results of the CBD underground utility study performed by RJN. The streetscape component includes geometric and physical improvements to streets and sidewalks, on-street parking, street lighting system, trees and tree planters, signage, and variety of other streetscape elements consisting of benches, bike racks, litter receptacles, and retaining walls. Following the receipt and review of proposals, interviews were conducted with 4 firms. A phase 1 contract has been awarded for the project to a team led by Civil Tech Engineering, with RJN as a primary subconsultant for utility design work. Important milestones include phase 1 completion in the spring of 2019, phase 2 design work throughout the balance of 2019, and construction of improvements starting in 2020. This is an exciting undertaking for the community and project team. Wish us luck.
All right, thank you very much. Our next presentation will be Joe Sullivan and Allison Swisher talking about the City of Joliet's case study.